The silence in my room is a lie. It's a high-pitched scream I can only hear in my own head, emanating from the tiny black in the center of my smoke detector. A camera. My stepdad, Mark, installed it 2 days ago. "It's for your protection, Alara," he'd said, his voice oozing a counterfeit concern that made my skin crawl. "That man next door, he gives me a bad feeling." My mother, a ghost in her own kitchen, just wrung her hands and nodded. "Mark's just worried, sweetie. It's for the best." The best for whom? Not for me. I now change clothes in the cramped bathroom, sleep in a huddled ball on the floor in the camera's blind spot, and feel its invisible gaze on me every second. It's not protection. It's a leash. Mark isn't my father. He's my jailer, and he's turned my bedroom into a cell. He watches the feed from a monitor in his office. I know he does. I've seen the flicker of light under the door. He's not watching for danger. He's just watching me. The man next door, Mr. Henderson Julian, is a quiet widower who tends his roses. He is Mark's excuse, his bogeyman. And in the fever of my paranoia, a desperate, dangerous idea took root. What if the bogeyman was my only hope? Tonight, I waited. Every creak of the house was Mark on the prowl. Every hum from the walls was the sound of my life being recorded. At 10, Mom knocked and whispered her nightly, "Fragile, I love you." At 11, I heard their bedroom door click shut. Then, the sound I was praying for. My mother's soft, rhythmic snore. It used to be a comfort. Now it was my starting pistol. I gave it 30 minutes, my body thrumming with a terror so potent it felt like courage. Barefoot, I slid my window open. The cool night air hit my face, tasting of freedom. Julian's house was dark, save for one low, golden light on the ground floor. His library. He reads late. My hands shook as I picked a quarter from my desk. I leaned out, took aim at the dark window frame, and flicked my wrist. The coin arced through the blackness and hit the wood with a sharp tink silence. My blood ran cold. Had he heard? Was I a fool? Then, the light in his library blinked out. My breath caught. A shadow detached itself from the deeper shadows of his porch. It was him. He moved with a liquid silence, scanning the street before stopping at the fence between our yards. He looked up, his face a pale oval in the gloom. He raised a single, questioning finger. "You?" I nodded frantically, my whole body a single, desperate plea. He held my gaze for a long, calculating moment. I felt like I was on a precipice, my fate held in the hands of this stranger Mark had taught me to fear. He gave a short, sharp nod, then pointed to the side of his house and vanished. My heart hammered. A moment later, he re-emerged, carrying a long aluminum ladder. He couldn't bring it into our yard. Mark's motion sensor floodlights would betray us. Instead, he propped it on the fence, climbed over with athletic ease, and landed on our lawn without a sound. He was breaking the rules. He was on my side. He crossed the grass, a phantom in the suburban night, and set the ladder against the house, directly beneath my window. He looked up, his pale eyes seeming to glow. He gestured with his head. Come on, this was the part one hadn't explained. I didn't want to run away. I wanted to fight back. I gripped the windowsill, my knuckles white. "The camera," I mouthed, my voice a strangled whisper, pointing at the ceiling. "I can't leave. I need you to help me with that." He squinted, his brow furrowing. Then, a look of dawning horror, quickly replaced by a cold, hard anger, settled on his face. He understood. He finally understood why a teenage girl was summoning him from her window in the middle of the night. He didn't waste a second. He started climbing. When his head was level with the sill, he was so close I could smell the faint, clean scent of old paper and damp earth. "He put a camera in your room," he murmured, his voice a low growl of disbelief. Tears I hadn't let myself cry finally spilled over, and I nodded. "Okay," he said, his voice instantly firm, steadying. "Okay. We handle this. But we do it smart. Does he have a live feed?" "In his office." I choked out. A muscle in his jaw clenched. "Then you were never out of this room. Your door is locked from the inside, right?" I nodded. "Good. That's our alibi. Now listen. The camera has a wide angle, but it can't see directly underneath itself. When you come through this window, you drop straight to the floor. Do not stand up. Crawl to your bed and get under the covers." "Can you do that?" "Yes," I breathed, a strange, wild hope blooming in my chest. "I'll help you in." I swung my legs over the sill, my sneakers finding a rung. The world tilted, but his hands were suddenly at my waist, strong and sure. They were an anchor in the chaos. On three, he whispered, his voice by my ear. Swing your other leg in, and drop. 1, 2, 3.
He boosted me.
For a heart-stopping second, I was suspended in the air. Then I was inside, my body hitting the floor with a soft thud. I folded myself into a heap on the carpet, just as he said. The violation of the camera's gaze felt like a physical weight on my back, but I didn't look up. I heard the window slide almost shut, leaving just a crack. I heard the scrape of the ladder being removed. Then nothing. He was gone. The room was the same. The oppressive silence, the invisible eye. But I was no longer the same girl who had opened the window. Staying low, a soldier in enemy territory, I crawled across the floor. I slipped into my bed, pulling the covers up to my chin and facing the wall, forcing my breathing into the even rhythm of sleep. My eyes were wide open in the dark. The fear was still a cold knot in my stomach, but it was no longer alone. It was tangled with a new feeling, something hot and sharp and fierce. Defiance. Mark thinks he has me in a cage, watching his helpless little bird. He's wrong. The cage is still here, but I am not helpless. I have an ally. And the war has just begun. The next day was a performance. I moved through the house like a ghost, my face a carefully blank mask. At breakfast, Mark was unbearably smug, watching me over the rim of his coffee mug.
He thought he had me.
He thought his little black eye in my ceiling gave him total dominion. He didn't know that his control had a fatal flaw. It had forced me to seek an alliance with the very person he'd used to justify it. That afternoon, I enacted the first part of the plan Julian and I had silently agreed upon. I placed a book on my windowsill, its spine facing out. It was our signal. Asterisk, the coast is clear. Let's talk. Asterisk, an hour later, my phone, which I'd left on my desk in full view of the camera, buzzed. A new, unknown number. Asterisk, backyard. North corner of the fence. 10 minutes. Asterisk, my heart leaped. He was smart. No verbal communication that could be overheard. Just silent, digital instructions. I waited, then ambled outside as if to get some air, my body rigid with forced casualness. I walked to the far corner of the yard, a spot obscured from the house by a thick lilac bush. Julian was on the other side of the fence, his face grim. The device is likely Wi-Fi enabled, streaming to a local server or a cloud service he controls, he said, his voice a low murmur that barely carried over the fence. We can't just disable it. He'd know immediately. We have to use it against him.
How?
I whispered, my eyes darting back toward the house. We need to record him. We need to catch him doing something that proves this was never about your safety. Something that shows his true motive. Control. A dark look passed over his face. Violation. The plan he laid out was terrifying in its simplicity. It required me to be the bait. That evening, I left my diary on my bed, open to a specific page. The entry was a work of fiction, carefully crafted to be a red flag for a jealous, possessive man. It spoke of a secret admirer, of stolen glances, of a man who was kind and understanding. I didn't use Julian's name, but I described his quiet nature, his gray eyes. Then, I went to take a shower, deliberately leaving my bedroom door unlocked for the first time in months. The wait in the bathroom was agonizing. I sat on the closed toilet lid, the steam from the shower fogging the mirror, my ears straining. Would he take the bait? After 10 minutes, I heard it. The soft creak of my bedroom door. Ice flooded my veins. He was in there. He was in my room, under the watchful eye of his own camera, believing he was the unseen observer. I imagined him standing there, his eyes scanning the room, landing on the diary. I pictured him picking it up, his fingers smudging the pages, his face contorting with rage as he read my fabricated words. He was violating my privacy, searching for evidence of a betrayal I hadn't even committed, all while being recorded by the very instrument of his oppression. When I finally forced myself to walk out of the bathroom, my room was empty. The diary was back on the bed, but it was closed now. He had been there. The trap was sprung. The next text from Julian came late that night. Asterisk, I have it. The server was unsecured. He's an arrogant amateur. The file is yours. Asterisk, the final piece was the hardest. The next morning, I found my mother alone in the living room, staring out the window. I held out a small USB stick. My hand was shaking. Mom, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Mark told you he put a camera in my room to protect me. To keep me safe. She flinched, her gaze dropping. Ilara, please? No, I said, pressing the drive into her hand. You need to see what it recorded. You need to see who he's really protecting himself from. I left her there. I couldn't watch. I went to my room, my cell, and waited. An hour passed. Then another. The silence from downstairs was more terrifying than any argument. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, furious footsteps. My door was thrown open. It wasn't Mom. It was Mark. His face was a twisted mask of fury, his pleasant facade completely gone. You and that freak next door, he hissed, advancing on me. You think you're so clever. But before he could take another step, my mother appeared in the doorway behind him. Her face was pale, streaked with tears, but her eyes, for the first time in years, were burning with a cold, clear fire. Get out, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a shard of glass. Mark spun around, his rage turning to disbelief. What? Helen, she's manipulating you. I saw it, Mark, she said, holding up the USB stick like a crucifix. I saw you go into her room. I saw you read her diary. I saw your face. That wasn't protection. That was sickness. She took a deep breath, and her frame, which had seemed so fragile, looked as solid as stone. Get your things. And get out of my house. He stared at her, his mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. The power had shifted so completely, so irrevocably, that it had struck him dumb. He looked from my mother's resolute face to mine. He saw no fear. He saw a stranger. Defeated, he turned and walked out. Later, after he was gone, my mother came into my room. She didn't speak. She walked to the center of the room, dragged my desk chair underneath the smoke detector, and climbed onto it. With a primal scream of frustration and grief, she ripped the device from the ceiling, wires dangling like severed nerves. She threw it to the floor, and we both watched as the tiny, malevolent black lens stared up at us, blind and powerless. Then she got down, came to me, and wrapped her arms around me. We stood there for a long time, holding each other amidst the quiet wreckage of our lives. The silence in my room was different now. It was real. It was empty. It was peace. The next day, I saw Julian pruning his roses. He looked up as I approached the fence. He didn't smile, just met my gaze with his steady gray eyes. I didn't need to say anything. He didn't either. I just nodded, a small, grateful gesture. He returned the nod, a silent acknowledgement of the battle we had fought and won, in the dark. Then he went back to his roses, and I went back into my house, my home. For the first time, I was safe. This was an intense journey to write and I imagined to read. Alara's fight was about finding her voice against someone trying to silence her, and proving that the most dangerous monsters are often the ones we're told to trust. Now, I want to hear from you. What part of her story resonated with you the most? Did you feel that chilling dread when she first saw the camera? Did you feel the surge of hope when Julian appeared with the ladder? Let me know your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Sharing our perspectives is what brings these stories to life. If you found yourself gripped by this story and believe narratives like this are important, please hit that like button. It's more than just a click. It tells the algorithm that stories with depth and real human struggle matter, helping it reach others who might need to read it. And finally, if you want to be part of this community and never miss another intense, thought-provoking story, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We delve into the light and the dark here, and I would be honored to have you along for the next journey.